Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Probably, I think, like, I know the face, I shouldn't say, well.
And there's the whole group, like this. This time last year.
So last year,
You said that you're right. Okay. Just have that there.
all right, folks, good afternoon. Good afternoon, go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll go ahead and start with roll call. As soon as you're ready.
Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, this is correct, but it seems that our membership is constantly evolving. So if I do not call you, just talk to me about it when we have a minute. And if I call someone and you know that they're not supposed to be here, it means that I haven't officially heard anything and we can talk about that. All right. Allen. Here. Banford. Here. Boyd.
Here.
Brock.
Actually.
Bouzon.
Here.
Karamanov.
Here.
Chang. Council. Cuomo.
Here.
Doms. Davis.
Here.
Dutt.
Here.
Dyer. Elias. Ellison.
Here.
Khan.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Griffin.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Hampton.
Here.
Hart.
Here.
Proxy for Hildebrandt. Okay, Jansen.
Here.
Yarapazmino.
Here.
Kazim.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Maggiano. Matthews.
Present.
McLean.
Here.
Mendes. Moon.
Here.
Morales.
Not away.
Afoe.
Here.
Perry. Riker.
Here.
Roberts. Ruffin.
Here.
Song.
Proxy. Rose.
Shelnut.
Proxy.
Shepherd.
Here.
Shin. Sibiano.
Here.
Swift.
Here.
Talbot.
Here.
Biswanath. Wentz.
Here.
Yang. Yarbrough.
Here.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So the minutes were approved electronically, so we'll go ahead and turn the floor over to our leaders, and we'll start out with administrative reports.
Good afternoon. Like love to make sure. This good afternoon. Great to be back here. Just finishing my 8 weeks, I think now. I've had a good time. I feel, these faces seem more familiar. I was just telling someone it's hard for me to remember names, but when I talk to you, I know which area you're in. That's easier to connect. So I do apologize if I see you and don't remember your name. But it's really helping meeting our faculty, getting a sense of the place. I've been visiting schools and having a good time overall. I do want to start with, our the tough news we've had since I've come here. We have lost 3 lives in our community. I just wanted to acknowledge that from physics, David Merchants. It's a big loss for us. More recently, Dr. Joshua Masters in English, and one of our dear students, Dante Jackerson in computer science. So a big loss for us, and kind of puts things in perspective on what's really important and how we just make the most of every day we have on this earth. That's how I, kind of try to operate. Last time I talked about being interim president, and how for me doesn't matter if it's interim. I mean, nothing is permanent, right? So for me, it's like, I have a day here to do some good work, and how can we move the university forward? And I know all of you do that every single day through our students. You are making a huge difference. I'll give you a couple of recent news, good things that have come up. One is on the enrollment side. We have, we had our highest number of enrollments was about, I think, 6 years ago or so, 13,700 or something. And then there was a COVID dip, and then we've been slowly coming back since then. And this year we're actually crossing that threshold. So we're the largest enrollment of 14,300 at this point. I think these are almost final numbers. So it is a great accomplishment in terms of numbers. It does. A concern I do have there is that a lot of it is driven by graduate enrollments and what we can do on the undergraduate side, because that's where we add value. That's where because out of these 14,300, I think roughly 9,000 are undergrads or graduate, mainly the College of Education. I was talking to some of our colleagues from there. That's where the main growth has been on the graduate side. I was looking at fall commencement numbers, for example. We have equal number of graduate students, equal to the number of undergraduate students who graduating, roughly equal. So it has shifted. Graduate is great, as a comprehensive institution, that is something that's important for us. But we do have the undergraduate is a big part of our mission, and we do need to do better, both in terms of enrollment and, as I've said earlier, graduation rates on that front. We do have some good, on retention. This year numbers look great. Again, I think better than we've had. I think it's 77% or something like that. So definitely we still this, kind of as a university system, we're still lagging behind a bit from the university metrics, but we're getting there. So there is some positive moment. There was also some good news from US News and World Report. We have and will be having a media release on that. Well, that there was, we are number 3 in the state on social mobility. And what that means is it basically compares the gap for Pell grantees versus non-Pell grantees to see what that gap is. And the gap is narrow, means you're doing well on social mobility, because the default is that those who are socially disadvantaged do worse than those who are not. But in our case, that gap is narrow, which shows we are doing a good job, kind of, in terms of the gap. I think overall, we definitely need to do better for everyone. But at least it's good to know that we're adding value equally on both groups. That was something good as well. And again, all of that is, it comes from everything that happens in your classes. I've just had some amazing experiences seeing how wonderful our students are. I know some of you, I see some of you in the room whom I just met an hour ago. We had one of our superstar alums, a 2019 graduate, Dr. Dally Davis, who did her undergraduate in chemistry from here. And I just went to see, and she'd come here for just to share her story. 2019 did chemistry here, and then went to Princeton for her PhD, and now works for CBC. So we have, kind of, and she was saying, basically her story was about all the support that she got from the faculty members, some of whom are in this room, all the support that she got, and how, she wasn't even applying to Princeton, and Dr. Ray said, hey, why aren't you applying there as well? And she wasn't sure, but eventually she did, and she got in. So, amazing story for us, and I've seen many other stories too. One of my favorite stories here has been looking at our, if you've been watching our football on ESPN Plus, that entire feed is led by a student group. Okay, they do it, everything is done by students. And honestly, I didn't believe it when someone told me first. And then I was like, no, I need to meet this group to know it's for real, because that's how good they are. You're kind of seeing it on national TV. And these are the kind of student experiences that really build it for us. Another example recently from, I think this is physics, chemistry. I know a few departments were involved. I know you were involved in a new spectrometer, which is some $420,000 grant that we have for a spectrometer that measures, when you're looking at changes, it measures changes within trillions of a second. And that kind of an instrument is something that our undergraduates will work on. I mean, that's not a kind of instrument that usually undergraduate focused programs get. But we have that, and our undergraduate students will be working on that. And I think these kinds of, and there are many more, into our School of Communication, Film and Media. I was just having a conversation. They have so many of these student experience groups where the students are working on radio and TV and everything else. So all of this to say that we have, as we are moving forward, I said last time we met, I talked about, graduation rates being my focus. And so in my leadership team, that's what they keep asking me every week. They're like, okay, what's on the agenda? And I'm like, same thing, graduation rates, student experiences. So because in my limited time, I want to just push on some things that I feel are really important for us. And I think I've said it before, our graduation rates are still about, out of every 5 students, about 2 graduate within 6 years. That is not a D1 graduation rate. And we can definitely do much better. And that comes with retention and other things, which are in the right direction. So I think we're headed in the right direction, but how do we get there? How do we get there fast? And the other thing is, how do we build, one thing that's clear to me is, because when I've asked in my leadership team, it's like, how do we get to these graduation rates? Some of it is kind of the things that happen in your classrooms. And some of it is all these other student experiences, like I was saying, right? Where students get opportunities, whether it's in the lab or whether it's in a student-led group for ESPN or something else, and how we can build on those experiences. So I would urge you to just keep encouraging your students to, just engage in those opportunities. You are the ones they listen to most. You are the ones who get most of the time with them, right? Then you go to their advisor, student advisor once a while, and so on. If it's outside the faculty, but it's in the classes that they're spending most of their time. So, so please keep doing all the good work you're doing. I think it's showing results, and we have to just keep moving in that direction toward these goals. So let me just pause here and see if there are any questions at this point. All right, hearing none, maybe I'll pass on to my progress. Yes,
Can you give an update on the presidential search and the committee's been formed and if you happen to be represented on that committee?
so I haven't seen, unless something in the last couple of days, I don't think the search committee has been formed yet. It's up to, we haven't seen anything, right? Yeah. So, you know, it's up to the board and the chancellor, how they don't consult me on that. They decide who serves on the committee. So I don't know what the composition is. I know there are some processes in which they have to ask certain people on like their recommendations and so on, which I believe they have gone through. But finally, it's up to them how they choose. Yeah, but so in terms of timeline, I don't know. For now, you're all stuck with me. But it's, you know, I guess it's given where we are, I guess it'll take a few months unless they just decide to appoint someone quickly. Otherwise, the search process, as you know, it takes several months. Any other questions? All right, so pass on to our proposed.
Thank you, Shwani. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. I love the red. I hope that you made it to Love Valley, right? Wear red, get fed. We're kicking off A-Day celebration and homecoming next week, so it's an exciting time. But it is also midterm, mid-semester, right? And I recognize that even though we had fall break for the students Thursday and Friday, faculty and staff never rest. So I appreciate what you do, and I'm sure you were grading and working throughout last long weekend with all of that going on. So thank you for everything that you do. Hope you get to enjoy the celebrations throughout the next week and really connect as a community, because the faculty and you and Faculty Senate are really representative of the broader group of faculty that are the heart and the soul of UWG. So hopefully you take some time amongst all the midterm grading to really enjoy and appreciate and take a moment to celebrate the work that you do. I was talking to someone yesterday and they said, yeah, it's going well, semester's going well. I was amazed at how my students are doing really good. They're doing well this semester. And I hope yours are also. They felt like they were making a difference, and you certainly do. Given the hurricanes that have come through recently, I want to take a moment and let folks know, if you are teaching those E-Core courses or some online courses, you might have some students that were impacted by that. Thank you for that flexibility. We're working with our sister institutions in Valdosta, Augusta, East Georgia, and others that are really still reeling from that. And so we extend our support to our colleagues. And if you or your students have been impacted, by that, your broader family, please reach out to services available across UWG and the USG for that. We're a part of a broader community. And at the board meeting earlier this week, we had an announcement made that the USG Foundation is raising money to help students and others that were impacted by that. So if you know of someone that is still recovering from that, there are resources available. Please reach out to me. I'd be happy to connect you to those and make sure that people now have what they need. So continuing kind of in that A-Day celebratory mode, I want to talk about some great things going on. Of course, we've got Safe Treat. So that's coming up later this month. And we've got the carving that our student, faculty, and staff artists do a great job of that. So hope you either participate in carving, or if your artistic skills are like mine, that you can just enjoy what other people are creating. But definitely come out for that. It's a great time to draw everyone together. And then just this morning, we had a gathering that Ors hosted around faculty who are scholarly active and received external funding in the past year. It's a great event, and really was able to celebrate faculty who are getting those external dollars, kind of in the spirit of trick-or-treating, going out and bringing treats back to the institution. I encourage everyone to participate in that. And my message to that group this morning, and we raised this in Faculty Senate last month, around flexible workload. And we do have the ability, if you see an opportunity, if you've got, 3 publications and you've got 3 different venues that you can go to. I know resources are tight, perhaps at the departmental level, but please connect with ORST on what they can sponsor, whether it's seed grants or whether it's funding to travel, or reach out to me. We might have some flexibility in not only workload for future semesters this upcoming academic year, but also what do you need today? If you have landed some things and you need a bit of support in the same way that we want that gap support for our students that are in need. We understand faculty might have a great idea, but there might be some limitations locally in the department. And I want you to know that we want to maximize opportunity for faculty to really invest in and snowball. So the instrumentation grant and some others that faculty have landed don't come overnight. It takes years of work and preparation. And a lot of times small investments can pay off in big ways. And that instrumentation grant is truly unique because it provides undergrad research experiences that many students, even at graduate R1 institutions, don't have access to. So unique in what we do and provide to students at UWG. It's really part of our DNA. So if you've got opportunity like that, I ask that you reach out to me. Another great example of that is the Humanities Undergraduate Research Conference that went on earlier this week, yesterday. And great sessions. If you didn't have a chance to get out and be a part of that, put that on your calendar for next year. It's really great to see what our undergrad students are doing. And along those same lines, we've got SRAP dollars that are available for both spring and summer. So make sure that you're leaning into that. If you've got opportunities for your students and you see some promise, say we can fund them rather than working at Target or at retail or elsewhere. We've got funds available to support those undergrad students, let them focus on research, and then that just snowballs into CDC and other opportunities that people might not be aware that they have. Appreciate Dylan giving me some questions that came from you all about things that we can address across academic affairs. Number one, I know there have been some discussions across really the last year about the public-facing email and phone numbers of faculty and staff. And there was a project looking at bringing that inside the VPN on campus, and then creating some central phone numbers at the department level. I want to give you an update that we are not going in that direction. So past conversations of how do people reach us if they're outside, we're not making a change to that website. So emails, phone numbers, all of that are still publicly out there. If there is some kind of security issue or some kind of OHR that we need to take care of, happy to deal with that on a one-on-one with you, but you'll still be able to have folks reach you directly. The flip side of that is the phones work for us and against us, right? It's 24/7, always available. So in the spirit of taking a break and pausing and refreshing, hope you do that and then be responsive during work hours or when it's appropriate. But if you've got voicemails there, attend to them appropriately. But just because someone's given you an email at 8 o'clock on a Friday night doesn't mean you need to get to it, right? We'll get to those appropriately. In a similar vein, now that we've made that Microsoft shift and we've got some IT things we'll talk about in a moment, through Teams, you've got the ability to do voice and video calls to anyone within the UWG domain. So rather than picking up that physical phone and calling someone, you can just double click on their name and the computer will make a connection for you there. You've got Teams on your mobile device as well. So this is really good if you're traveling for conferences or if you're on the Nunu campus instead of Carrollton for a day, people can still get to you. And I encourage you to lean into that Teams approach. The cost savings that UWG might realize if we crossfade physical phones out can be significant. So we talk about where are we investing money, providing resources for professional development and conference attendance. It could be we realize hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in not necessarily having idle phones that are never called, never used, sitting on desks across the institution. That said, if you actively use yours, we're not taking it away. It's still going to be there, but ITS is doing a utilization review and saying, where do we have lines that we're paying for and have been dormant for who knows how long? So that Teams feature, if you haven't checked it out, it's pretty cool. Just click on the person, and if they answer, you've got a video call right there. You can do that screen sharing, and it really increases collaboration significantly. rather than sending a bunch of emails and, hey, did you get this version and that version and so forth. Speaking of ITS, I know that there was that hiccup about a week ago about group mail. If you send something out to a group of students and then they were asking you to resend it, apologize for that. That was a very minor setting that did not get implemented properly when we moved the students over, and happy to connect with you and Kirk Inman on that if you really want a deep technical dive of that. But the net effect is there were a few days where if you send something out to the group, unfortunately, please resend and apologize for that hiccup. If you still have outstanding issues with your using your email or using the Microsoft platform, please put a ticket in, please go by the help desk and then reach out to me and Kirk directly. I know we had at the general faculty meeting, Kirk addressed that and people were having some issues. Please get the help that you need and I'll get you connected to the right place, or Kirk Inman can as well. I hope that that's not pervasive. It was a huge move and change is always difficult. But remember, we were one of 3 USG institutions that had not moved into that Microsoft platform. You know, homogenizing isn't always a great idea, but in this case with tech, it really is, because it's going to allow us to collaborate with our USG colleagues and the system office much better. And the features from a security perspective are much better. So I don't know if you've seen me trying to sell you a piano. Hopefully not. You're not getting that text. You're not getting that email. If you do, you know, cybersecurity, forward that on. But part of this, the benefit of this is not only forward facing that you'll see in that Microsoft suite, but also on the backside, things that hopefully none of us will ever see on a security perspective. Speaking of change, we've got Pafford, right? Great question about when is that happening? Facilities is still working on this, and in the next week or two, we'll have a more formal timeline of this. But what I'd like to share with you that's probably of the most immediate concern is that anyone that is in Pafford currently in an office will have a designated office elsewhere on campus. We're not going to be hoteling. You're not going to have to share, you know, with 7 other people. If you've got an office now, you'll have an office as that renovation is occurring. And we'll have specific timelines of when you need to vacate and when you'll be able to return, hopefully in the next few weeks. We are still working at the state level about resolving some of the, we call it value engineering, right? Based on the budget and what is most important and what do we absolutely need to have versus, given the cost constraints, what can we pause or maybe modify? So that's the delay in really finalizing that move. You don't need to start boxing things up. Facilities will assist with that and will provide the boxes at the appropriate time, and ITS and facilities will move. Question at the beginning of this meeting was, well, can we have some say in that move and who's where? Absolutely, yes. So we will put that on the table for those that are in those areas that are going to be impacted. We'll have some input that chairs and deans and faculty can provide to make sure that that is as least disruptive as possible. It's going to be a great improvement, as we've seen with the humanities building, similar in Pafford. I know we're going to get into this in a moment about AI and the schedule later in the agenda. I see that on there, but I'd just like to take a moment and talk about AI. The USG 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago now, had a great system level statewide conference on AI. President Mongo led that, right, in a different role, but was happy to really have some great presentations from faculty across the USG, industry leaders, as well as policy leaders at a legislative level. And UWG has done a fantastic job across the last year in working groups. We had a faculty senate working session on Gen AI. I know we've got a recommendation here on the agenda about Gen AI and syllabi and making sure that people understand what is and isn't appropriate. I'll just share as a personal anecdote. After that Gen AI conference that we had 2.5 weeks ago, I went home and I said, what can I do in 1 hour this evening? Opened up Copilot, Microsoft's technology, and said, for an intro computing course in Python, what are the main topics that you needed? It generated a list of 12. And I said, for each one of these, generate a chapter with exercises and examples. And within an hour, I had about a 100-page textbook that would be appropriate for what I used to teach in CS1 back in the day. And I share that with you because it's not something that we can wall off and say, we're going to ignore this and say to students, never touch it because it's, going to destroy your ability to learn. Like so much technology, we need to understand how it should be used and not removing the soul and the essence of what we do as faculty in higher education, but how can it augment and improve? Now, certainly that book that it wrote, I'm not going to put that on my P&T as a faculty member, but it is a very useful tool to provide different examples. And it would not be sufficient as a CS intro computing course textbook because there's examples of what not to do and errors that I've seen students make across decades that I would want examples that they could learn from. But it is a starting point. And I know IFE and the library are doing some great work in workshops around this. I encourage you, if you haven't played with these tools, please do so. Just go to ChatGPT or Copilot and give it a prompt. Write a letter to me. You can say, author a letter of complaint to the provost in faculty voice about topic X. Send it on to me. I'd love to see what you come up with. At least notate it. Say, yeah, Copilot, help me out with this. Just so I'm getting that feedback. But give it a go, and please do connect with what IFE and the library are doing. It's fascinating, and I think regardless of your discipline, there's a way to apply this in what you're doing. And it's certainly not going to eliminate faculty and the importance of faculty in teaching. But what it will do, hopefully, is remove some of that drudgery and some of the work that we do that's really not as important. It takes care of some of the plumbing or the utility, electricity, internet, water in this building. Think of it like a utility, if you will, that it's a resource to get us where we'd like to go. Last thing I'll talk about is related to that AI is the early alert and CourseDen and D2L. Thank you for all of you that have put in. I think the utilization rate or the report rate in early alert was like 95, 97%. Great work there in identifying needs that students have and those that need additional advising and assistance. I'll share that we have as many students and in those reporting just this semester than we had all year last year. Now, part of that is because we've really leaned into that reporting, but part of it also is that the needs that students have and the scaffolding and the support they need is also increasing. The ability for us to automate that and send useful support, kudos to the students that are doing well, and intervention texts or other messages to the students that maybe they didn't turn an assignment, or maybe it's due tomorrow, and we're going to gently remind the students that it's due tomorrow. There's ways of automating this that keep faculty able to focus on what matters most rather than doing a lot of this reporting. So although one of the success measures of this early alert is that we've got a 97% utilization and report rate, I'll say personally, I'm looking forward to that going to 0. And what I mean by that is the system should be able to detect when a student is headed in the wrong direction on a per course or per assignment basis. Now that's still, you'll still be able to say in class, I noticed something and put that in, but that's very different than yes, the student is passing or yes, the student is in need of intervention. So automating a lot of that, again, not taking the place of what we do, but making it more efficient and more impactful is really key. So along those lines, within CourseDen and D2L, a question that was raised is, how come the chair and the dean have access to my section? We've been talking about this for quite a while, and we did flip this on this semester. So if you were surprised by that, I apologize. We've been communicating, but when we did lean into that, and you saw, hold on, why is Renee Butler taking my intro mathematics course? The reason being is, unfortunately, we've got situations like we've experienced this semester where we need to step into the class in an event where there's a tragedy. Or also someone could just be ill or at a conference without connectivity. And we need to make sure that the course is taken care of. So there's that reactive element to it. The other side is at the end of every semester, we've got a situation where someone thought that they pushed yes, here's the final grades and submit. And you know the travail of if we don't get those in on time, then we've got to go through and do course grade change. And it's just very, very laborious once those grades are rolled. So part of this is also in a situation where we just need to take care of the plumbing and the logistics of closing out a course if someone thought that they turned it in, but then they didn't. It also gives us the ability to, if there's a situation where the student is saying, well, my professor is not doing X, Y, and Z, rather than troubling you about it, go to the faculty, talk about that, but we can also validate, no, there's actually a syllabus, here it is, and support the faculty in saying the course is really well structured. Faculty's doing a great job here, and here are the resources. So it gives visibility. It's not a cops and robbers, a criminology thing. It's really about our ability to react in very small cases where we need to really well. And then it also allows us to do that automation of grade checking and making sure that students are on track. Happy to dive into that. And if you've got concerns about the implementation of that, but I do want to contextualize and say that it is not looking over the shoulder, big brother, cops and robbers. That is not the motivation at all. It's really about using the technology to remove that friction and improve learning. I think I've gotten through all the questions, but tell me if I've missed anything, or happy to take other thoughts, questions as well. Yes, please.
I was just wondering if you were aware of any plans for Veterans Day this year.
I am not, but happy to take that back and see what we're doing.
Okay.
As a military-friendly institution, that's absolutely appropriate that we focus on these events. Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a few questions for you.
Yes.
So one of the questions is, one of them wants to know where do they get information about the faculty education leave, like instructions, what's the proposal needs to look like, that they're finding it difficult to access that information.
So the question was, if you're online or on the other side of the room, the faculty leave form. And I always start off by saying I don't like the leave term, right? Because you're not leaving, it's an adjustment. But that's what it's called in the USG policy, and so that's what we'll refer to it. Please have someone reach out to me. There is the faculty leave form. It's fairly short. But for my part, I think the major emphasis of any proposal should be, how does what I am doing and proposing go beyond my typical workload in scholarship, creative activity, research, service, and teaching? But if I have, in particular, an on-site, or if I have something that is timely that needs to be taken care of. We've had past proposals in the last few years where someone was doing ethnographic interviews and they needed to be on-site in particular. And that would be a strong advocacy for why this needs to be a leave, where I'm not obligated to be on campus for meetings and teaching and so forth. But beyond that, it's really about what's the proposal, how does this go beyond what faculty would typically be doing under that scholarship portion of their workload. So if it's writing a chapter or authoring a paper or going after a grant, then please emphasize how that's beyond, and the proposal goes beyond what you would do in a regular academic year as part of your scholarship.
I think there's also another question. I'm not sure if you're the person to answer this question, but it's in reference to the new upcoming proposed schedule by block that was released by the Senate, the new schedule that is still being under consideration. So a few questions was raised by a faculty member in sociology. He or she stated there's some conflict between Douglasville, Nolan, and the Tarleton campus in terms of timing, that sometimes that needs to be rectified, that there's some the times are not consistent across the three spaces. So that's one of the questions. Another is in reference to the Monday, Wednesday shift, or to the Wednesday, Friday shift. So that needs to be resolved in reference to the free time issue. So, and I will share this document with you later on. But, and then the point 4, in reference to the hybrid classes, the individual states that this is problematic as the hybrid courses becomes more common for students and faculty preferences, and oftentimes maybe students, because this is a working university, many students might not show up for the physical part of it and so forth. So, yeah, but I'll share this document with you later and.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Please do, I'd be interested. I know that that's on the
Yeah, I
agenda,
just wanted-
and
Yeah.
Dylan and Jeff are getting into this in a bit.
Yeah, we will have a dedicated period with some subject matter experts on that issue at later in the meeting, so.
Mhm.
But those are good points to discuss them.
Yeah, as far as students skipping, that's a huge issue, right? We need to address regardless of the schedule change, but I do want to say before we hand it off that the work of that group has been phenomenal in hearing the concerns that people have, and I think the proposal that you all are looking at today addresses that. It makes some slight changes, but it's not necessarily a 1 hour across all 5 days, but just Tuesday, Thursday. And looking forward to that conversation later today during our faculty senate meeting. Thank you. Yeah, there's those thoughts? Yes.
I've got jury duty on Veterans Day, so that's not harm doing my Veterans Day. So we've got a someone brought up an issue of, we're logging into our own, no longer with Let Me In or a class user and Let Me In. Some students who are having having clubs and stuff like that and needing to log in, and apparently, I don't know, but apparently they're having trouble logging into those things and they want to do their own presentations in classes. I wonder if any of you have had that as a problem, and if it is a problem or something we can ameliorate, then if you could speak to that, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to ITS to do a deep dive in that, but in general, if someone, you should be able to go to any machine on campus and be able to utilize your credentials to log in. If people are having trouble with that, and some of the logistics of, let's say I'm running the club, but 5 of you need to be able to present a incognito browser, and then log in there, download the presentation. Sorry, I'm speaking Mac.
Yeah, come on.
What's the equivalent? Private browsing, right? So that it's not recording your login, but open up a web browser, log in, download your presentation or present through that. And then when you shut that down, it doesn't save any of it. So that would be the most secure method. But people should be able to go to any machine and log in. So that's an issue. Please let me know. Please let ITS know.
I'll just say briefly on that, because our GTAs who have my Wesca emails were not able to do it and they couldn't teach their courses. So when they were teaching class, they had to get a wesca.edu address to be able to actually log in. It might be that, I'm not sure. I think it's an issue with students, not.
That's what I meant, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Let me take a note of that because again, the driving philosophy should be, even if it's a my.wescott, any student should be able to log into this machine. There's no reason not. And if that's not been what's implemented, if that's what I'm hearing, let me take that back to ITS. Okay, thank you for raising that. Others? Yes.
Dr. Preston, do you have any updates on faculty lines, when those are going to be approved for the coming year?
Great question. Today is the deadline for all of the EAC members to submit to VP McElroy and the president our FY26 budget material. So working with the deans, building that out, looking at credit hour production and the map of the growth of that. That I'm finalizing that this afternoon. And I know that based on schedule, the Faculty Senate Budget Committee meeting has been pushed back to the 22nd of October so that I can be at that. I'll be discussing, but if we look at total credit hour growth over year, and then look at the sustainability of that, we do need flexibility to make sure that that is sustained. But a good way of handling that growth is part-time and limited term, but then at some point you need to flip that to full-time. And in areas that have been growing steadily over a number of years, my advocacy is to start hiring and adding lines to those areas. In an area that's got just a year-over-year bump, we can grow in LTI and PT, but you can only go so far with that. And after a bit of time, you see the trend line. In particular, first-year math, first-year English, and some of our gen ed, given what we've seen in the undergraduate space, political science as well. I mean, that's year-over-year, it's been fantastic, but gen ed math, gen ed English, and the core, we're seeing that grow, which is a lead indicator of health overall for the institution. And then that would lead to more majors and so forth. So top of mind, and by the November meeting of the Faculty Senate, after that Faculty Senate budget meeting, we should have some more details on that. Great question. Okay, if you have individual questions, anything I can do for you, please reach out. Thank you all. Thanks for the time.
And if I may take a minute to, I did check with people on Veterans Day on, and I got a response. So one is, flags at half staff. Two is our own, chief, Ned Watson. If you don't know, he's been an opera singer. So he sings very well. So he's going to be singing the national anthem and God Bless America at the Veterans Memorial Park with the Carroll County Wind Ensemble. And then we have a social media campaign planned for Veterans Day. And then our library is partnering with Student Affairs to showcase rare materials from military campaigns and veterans papers in their special collections, covers from the US Civil War through Vietnam War.
And I would just, my recommendation is like to have staff is more Memorial Day. So,
That's what I was gonna
yeah,
say.
so
Yeah, Veterans Day is to celebrate living veterans.
better.
Yeah, so I will talk to Ned and see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We did not acknowledge our veterans last year in any kind of a way,
Okay.
and that was very much missed.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I will check on the.
I've offered to help out this year too, so I just
Okay.
didn't get a response, but would be more than happy to help out.
I'll definitely check on the, I think, make a good point. But again, I don't know if there are, some of the flag things are based on, system office or state things, but you're right, it's unlikely to be app, so I'll check on that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, thank you all. So just a few things before we move down the agenda. We're picking up speed. Our committees are getting a little bit busier, but we're still not at full steam yet. The full steam probably hits us right around the time we're trying to think about Christmas, but that's how it goes. I will give a brief update. Unfortunately, it's not gonna be a satisfying update, but I'll at least tell you what I know about the search. I have absolutely advocated directly to the chancellor that UWG faculty and staff and other constituencies need to be represented on that board. That's been acknowledged. It's said it's been appreciated, and it's been unfortunately radio silence for a significant period of time. So I don't know.
If I may say, I think some of it may have been with all the hurricane and everything going on. I think that kind of slowed down things for the chancellor's office. By the way, I had missed Ned's second text, which was a correction. Correction, flags will not be flown at because I was thinking of Memorial Day. So,
Good, thank you.
so yeah, I read too soon. I didn't see his follow-up text. See.
Good, thank you. Quickly on some of the follow-up on some of our ongoing business. We will hear in more detail about a university-wide policy for AI shortly. I think some things that, at least in my mind, have been clarified in the topic of AI over the past month or so. There is a bigger picture university-wide policy regarding AI that has been released publicly. That is what we're going to specifically learn more about. As a Senate, we have an ongoing task to refine guidance that will hopefully end up in our faculty handbook about how we in our classes can deal with the issue of our students using Gen AI and guidance around that. Gavin Lee has been taking lead on that, and in discussions with him, who just told me he needs a 36-hour day. So sorry, Gav. FITC, his committee, is going to continue to run with that. It seems like an appropriately placed committee, and a lot of the work has been done. That's his work, and the Senate's work previously is what's currently reflected in that draft that's on IFE's website. So we're going to continue to run with that side of it. That's the academic side. In a few minutes, Dr. Akins will tell us about the bigger picture, just to contextualize, because we really don't want to confuse these multiple aspects of such a big issue. I know, I'll be frank, the issue itself makes my head explode a little bit, but that's fine. So briefly, do we have any Senate chairs, committee chairs that need to make any announcements before we get through the rest of the agenda? I just want to give an opportunity for that in case something came up. All right, with that, I want to turn it over to GPC for some brief agenda items.
And I think they, didn't have any additional.
Okay.
Unless they want.
So unspoken and verbally, but the agenda items are up there. But read information on, nothing we actually have to take action on. So we'll move on.
Dylan?
Yeah.
Just want to draw everyone's attention to the grad assistantship application through the end of October. Please make sure you avail yourself of that. Grad assistants are a great way to make sure we've got support of faculty research, as well as the grad teaching assistantships for some first year courses. So just didn't want to make sure everybody saw that. And that's a very important resource for faculty's work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we don't,
Just one very quick thing about that, it's not just me doing that AI work. We had a lot of work with a lot of people on the committee. Dr. Akins headed that up, and also IFV have been doing fantastic work. So I was one part in a very well working machine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I should be clear, I think that issue has matured beyond the task force era, but it is still something that interests all of us. So if any of you have a particular interest in working on it, I know Gavin would appreciate the help, so you're more welcome to get in touch with him. It's not exclusively his deal. Any follow-up questions on AI? I want to create space for that and have some dialogue about that if there are questions, but for now, I'd like to hold those and invite Dr. Akins up if she would like to come give some context.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay, I don't need the mic then. Thank you. I just want to present a little background and history on how the AI work has been going on at the university, for those of you who may have not heard all the details. So you understand the bigger picture and the specifically academic aspect. It was last year in fall 2023 when we started an initiative compiling a working group to look into AI. That was provoked and incentivized by student conduct issues. We started having the situations when a faculty would say, the student used AI, this is plagiarism. At that time, we learned that Turnitin and other tools did not actually have reliability in determining the use of AI. And because that could be a big issue, who did plagiarize and who not, we started that working group. It started very small. I was very pleasantly surprised that many faculty wanted to join. So thank you to all of you who joined. We did have representation from Faculty Senate, from Executive Committee. We did have representation from all colleges, and every faculty who wanted to participate was, so to say, accepted to the group. We never said, no, you're not going to participate. So the voice was throughout the campus and well heard. We created several documents, and a couple of those were more widely discussed. One was, when could students truly use AI? And the other was the general guidance to faculty that we should not be approaching AI with a punishment. We should be approaching it with constructive dialogue with the students. With that, the documents that were created by this working group were presented to Faculty Senate committees, and yes, thank you, Professor Lee, thank you, Professor Swift. Some committees reviewed them and gave feedback. There was no big concern about implementation, and then we moved to the next stage. What does it mean to the university? It appears that we have to think about the bigger picture, and that was not anymore faculty only matter. Legal counsel took the lead, and there were discussions with ITS and the Office of the Provost and my representation, and the bigger policy was created. Legal was very meticulous. Christy Carmen and her team, including Tara Pearson, very detailed national review of what's going on. So the link in the documents for today will take you to the university policy. That's university policy, meaning that we have to abide by it. One important element there that is related to academics is whether or not we can put student work into generative AI tools. Currently, the university does not have a contract that our specific information from UWG will not be used beyond UWG. We cannot limit that. Anything that you put from your own work or any student work goes to the world. And we cannot have that. I know that this may limit some very creative projects. And even earlier today, I had a discussion with a faculty about a fantastic project they have for their students, but it would use some prior student work, and we cannot have that. I'm very sorry, but we have to think of other ways to use AI without putting student work in it. The other part is that from the academic side of the house, we still have to be very careful what we do with AI. How do we alert our students when they can and when they cannot use AI? So that is what the documents currently displayed to the right, the guidance to faculty, and what are the options for the syllabi are displayed. And Mandy has them on the IFE website. If you click, you will see. There are 4 options throughout the spectrum of usage. On one side is, don't ever use AI in my class. It's an option. And on the other side is the option, you must use AI in this class, even if you don't like it. You have to learn how to do it. So we do have 2 intermediate options. One is you have to use AI for certain assignments, and the other is use of AI is permitted if you appropriately cited. For now, this works well where AI is, where our university is, where the general understanding in higher education is. But what I would like to mention to you is that right now we encourage that. Please speak with your colleagues and spread the word that we will be asking every faculty to choose one option and put in the syllabus starting this spring. This will decrease the opportunity for misunderstanding between faculty and students, and honestly, will decrease the risk of litigation. If we inappropriately take a student out of class and do not allow them to continue their education, what are we doing? We're stopping their professional future. We cannot do that without sufficient evidence. Currently, we do not have any tool that works that way. So please read the guidelines. Make your mind what you would like to use. And all the discussions will continue because AI is developing, and we will have to continue these discussions. We will have to see how everything is moving. And I know you have many questions, so I'll stop here. Let's start with the questions. Yes.
I'm from the computing department, and I have a colleague who has a question he wants to ask. You probably know who the person is, and a little bit of background about this. So the faculty member in our department planned a research project to feed some student work to generate AI for the research, and at the last step, the project was shut down because of the policy that faculty cannot upload students. coursework to generate. And so the faculty member wanted me to ask, will UWG provide some kind of formal, those develop a formal process, make exceptions for education related research?
This is a very complex question. And I might have spoken with that faculty. So it would be great if you connect with the faculty. If they have not spoken with me, I will gladly have that discussion. In general, the university does not have a contract, and I will repeat that. At this time, we do not have a contract with ChatGPT, OpenAI, or any other AI tool or company not to provide our information beyond. There was one faculty who had a very interesting idea, and we discussed it. It appears it may not be possible to be completed by this next semester, but it might be very interesting if they work with ITS and develop something that will be housed only on our internal servers and will never leave our servers. I do not have that detailed knowledge, but ITS would be able to say if it is possible. And we always have to consult with legal about the risk. I hope this gives you an idea about the realm of where we are. Currently, we should not be feeding student work into ChatGPT or other tools. Currently. So this is not a no. It's not at this time. And maybe not for this project. But in the future, we will see how it develops.
Yes, I think the faculty just wanted to know if UWG is planning to develop such a guideline for the making exception.
I will ask Dr. Preston's help.
Yeah, ITS is working on part of that Microsoft migration. Copilot, as part of the Microsoft suite, will be private and internal to UWG. So let me get back to you on the timing of that rollout, but that would be an ability where faculty and staff and students can use Copilot and maintain that privacy of what they're putting into that Gen AI space. Okay.
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question about uploading the work or getting the work to generative AI. If the student consents to that, is that okay, or is this just never happen?
As the policy is written, this is essentially a FERPA issue.
Even with student consent, even if they are doing a project and they want to put work in your feedback on
I
it?
think we need to get into a deeper discussion rather than here, but what does that do to UWG's IP as a whole? So even if it's an individual who's consenting, what does that do for our overall intellectual property and the value proposition of the institution? I think it's broader than just one person saying yes.
The faculty cannot do it, the students can still put their work into a ChatGPT and get feedback.
Their computer, their work.
And if it is for a course, they have to acknowledge that they used AI.
To produce the work or to get any feedback on it. Or
But to your point too, there's another side to the coin, which is for intellectual IP that the students are free to put without guidance, of course, any of our intellectual property into the system as an institution. So all of our textbooks or assignments that we provide, summaries that we write, quizzes that we write. So is there a plan for any kind of a parallel statement to encourage students to honor that intellectual property on the side of the faculty as well?
Well, that is a great suggestion. We have thought about enhancing what is in the student handbook, and I will gladly bring this to Christy Carman, our legal counsel, to possibly work with student affairs on that part, because the student handbook is housed currently in student affairs. But yes, we will have to do some of that work, and that's why Dylan noted that the faculty senate committees and activities around AI are not finished. We are starting from the university policy. We are starting from the work that our AI group did last year. It's a start. And as long as AI is developing, we probably will be catching up to its capabilities.
I'll add, and I think let's go back to the point, and Jenna, as the governor's fellow, you might have input that this come up, but I'll add, the key phrase is that when you put it in Gen AI, it's akin to putting it out publicly on a web page. And I don't know that everybody understands that. So I think the basis of the question is, you might have content as a faculty member within your D2L space that's private and only to the students in the class. If someone cuts and pastes that into Gen AI, that's the equivalent of them posting it in Reddit or on a website. And if you're not giving permission for that, that becomes the issue. But educating students, that's the equivalent. And that's really the issue. It's not, oh, I was trying to use this to help me with the assignment, but I'm taking a professor's work and I'm putting it out there beyond their permission. Educating them on that is probably the best start. You have a comment?
I do agree. I think having that conversation, it does prove to be difficult in an era where students grew up on the internet. So I do think that the literacy aspect of it is important, but I do think it in practical application, that's a challenging conversation to have if there's no ramification for doing it. So we have these comments, like for example, my class is themed AI, it's first year writing. My first papers that came in still have students using AI to write the paper, even though the whole class is themed AI literacy. So I don't really know how to educate them enough to prevent them from doing this kind of thing without having this sort of.
I can share something that is coming in the near future, and it could become a model for many universities in the system. The model will be coming because it's not out there yet from eCampus. They're in the process of development our AI literacy course through writing that will educate students about the ethical use of AI and will require use of AI in order to learn how to use it. So such a course that is, let's say, a writing course, but also AI ethical use, and also to understand that AI is not perfect. It can hallucinate, it can produce something that does not exist in the real world. How do you know that? So maybe we will have to have such, as you nicely said it, literacy, AI literacy course developed for us here and starting to use it. I cannot wait to see in the next semester or two what will come out of the campus and how it will be assessed and how it will work. And in any successful outcome, we could join in and start using it. Again, we're trying to have a permanent solution for a problem that is a moving target. And I would love for all of us to really put our heads together, our minds together, and have a task force that periodically and systematically looks at the developments and updates anything that exists in the student handbook and the faculty handbook. Hopefully, we will have something published there, and we'll be advising as well our legal office and asking the questions so we can get the help we need. I see nodding. Any final questions? Dr. Preston, any final advice?
We've got one more question.
This is one more question. This goes to the ethics of AI and research. So there's clearly multiple faculty that have questions about how to ethically use AI regards to student information or student data. That obviously presents clear questions regarding informed consent. Has there been any opportunities to start to engage the UWG IRB with drafting policies related to that?
No, but I love what you just said. I know that we have leadership that is deeply interested in AI, in Ashwani and John. Thank you both for this deep interest and support in AI. And that is absolutely fantastic suggestion. So I'm sure Dr. Mangier would love to work with faculty and explore the topic. This is a great suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. So first, I want to backtrack. I absolutely did not mean to give short shrift to all of our colleagues who have worked on this issue over the past year. I simply mentioned Gavin to contextualize the fact that FITC currently has this ball. He chairs FITC. Because this is such a multi-dimensional issue, I think as an executive committee, we're going to have the task of breaking it up into manageable bites and assigning those bites. I just heard, I hadn't even considered what Martin just raised. That seems like another bite that we should consider, but assigning these to the appropriate committee to really dive into them. But it seems clear that right now, especially since we're being asked to have something in all of our syllabi by next semester, we need to get something in our handbook as quickly as possible. So that's the current charge that FITC has. And this is the starting point for that conversation.
Can I just clarify something on the point about the syllabi? That will be the next common course component that we will expect faculty to include. I've met with all the deans, they're on board. But be mindful that the 4 policies are guidelines. And so if you don't use one of the 4, you will need to craft your own policy for your syllabus. But a syllabus that does not have an AI policy will be a problem. That will be a problem for everything from grade appeals to you being able to have any enforcement of anything in your classes. So that will be a spring expectation. The 4 policies are great. They're used widely. I think we stole them from Georgia Tech. Is that right, Gab? To some degree? We didn't really steal them. We friendly borrowed them. It's like eggs from a neighbor. We just, but those are going to go into effect, or your own policy would go into effect in the spring. So just keep that in mind and be sure that you do let faculty know widely that that's coming in the spring, that expectation.
All right, sorry to add to that, and thank you for that. I know Mandy and I have spoken about it, but we're concerned about the legal ramification of having policies and things not being nailed down, if you will, right? Not having something there could lead to great appeals and sort of legal jeopardy. If we have those 4 sections and then section 5, which is the wild, wild west, but people like me have forbid even trying to write something, that could that not lead to the problems that we're trying to avoid? See what I'm saying?
I mean, having the option to write in your
Having
own.
like the freestyle stuff, but yeah, you can have.
Well, our syllabi already have those, you can set your own class policies right now in your class. And when grade appeals happen, you're accountable to the syllabus. So if the student wants to contest the syllabus as part of their grade appeal, they can. But generally speaking, our statements in the syllabus are what we have to back us up when a grade appeal is processed, regardless of what they say. Now, they have to be conforming with the university policy for sure. We don't have a faculty handbook policy. That's a concern. But we also can't specify a handbook policy so directly that it's going to be outdated within a month. So it's really tricky to nail down what these options or even your own write-in should be, because AI is constantly fluid. So I think you just have to have something there.
We can just copy and paste Georgia Tech on the 1st of every month, right?
So use one of the 4 if you feel comfortable, but if you do write one in, that's fine.
There you go. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
All right, good. Clearly an ongoing issue, but we have,
Say something.
did we have one?
One more here. I think we should start with trusting faculty. I mean, your point's well made, wild, wild west. Coming from Gavin, it's appropriate, right? You push back appropriately. But whether you use one of these 4 or whether you craft your own, I mean, we have the ability for faculty to define attendance policies currently. Yet we're not saying you can only say this or this or that. So let's start with trusting our colleagues. And if there's something of issue, then let's talk about that, and the chairs and the deans can bring that up. But I start from a place of saying you all have your best interest of your students in mind, and it'll flow from there. Will it be perfect? Probably not. Will it be really darn good? Absolutely.
Good. Thank you. All right, so I know we all receive questions from our colleagues frequently about the early alert system. So we have a brief opportunity to get some more questions answered and learn some more context on that. So turn it over to Sheldon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Scott. I am the director for the Center for Academic Success, and I'm here to answer any questions. I do have a couple of just quick updates about it, and I'll be presenting this at the Provost Council as well. We received 35,000 reports, over 35,000 reports in total and had 93% institutional response rate. So I want to first thank you all for that because that is a very huge feat, I think, for our institution, for the support of our students, and to give scale, we only had 14,000 reports turned in the spring. So we are really ramping up our size. But overall, we had over 400 faculty submit, less than 50 that didn't submit anything. So I think that that's really great. And I want to use this opportunity as Q&A and feedback. And with the expansion, we run into hiccups and we have some kinks and we want to work those out. So I appreciate open and honest feedback and how we can create that conversation.
Tell me, Reed's, like, give an overview of what happens when, you know, all these reports, what do you do?
So absolutely. So it is different for every student. So when a student receives a kudo, let's start there. Let's start with the good first. So when faculty submit that a student has a kudo, that student automatically gets an email and says, we want to let you know that your instructor, Professor Blank, has noted you for academic achievement. Here are comments that were left regarding your performance. Keep up the great work. We are very proud of the work that you're doing. When a student is marked as performing below expectation, they get an email as soon as an instructor hits the submit button. So if you hit that button at 1:32 p.m., that student gets that email at 1:33 p.m., which then prompts the student to make an appointment with the Center for Academic Success to attend an academic coaching appointment. In that academic coaching appointment, what we do is we go over what are things that are going on in the class. We talk about things that we see on the back end. So let's say missing assignments. If a student has missing assignments, what assignments are we missing? Was there something that impacted your ability to turn them in on time? If you're frequently absent, why aren't you coming? Is it too early? Are you tardy and sleeping in a little late? We go through that with each student and work to build an action plan moving forward. This is totally separate from university advising, which a lot of people think that it's together. Students still have to attend university advising meetings to be able to register for courses for the next semester. Our process is mostly student-led, so we have a team of 15 peer academic coaches as well as 4 staff members, professional staff members that take appointments. In those appointments, like I said, we go through the action plan, create a follow-up plan as well, and update that information in EAB where they are submitted. Everything is kept under the student profile so that you can see an ongoing record of any appointments attended, any notes, appointment summaries as well. So that's kind of the overall process. Once the student receives a second course alert as well, their advisor then is automated to reach out to them. So they receive an email from their advisor prompting 2, and anything more than 3, they get a phone call from our office stating, we need to get you in again. We need to talk about these things. So for every course alert, we ask them to come in and update us on the situation that's going on. That's kind of a very broad overview. Yes.
So you said they get an email encouraging them to schedule an appointment.
Yes.
Do you have numbers on the success rate of them following through to schedule those appointments?
Yes. So we had 1,744 students that were contacted this semester to make an appointment. We have seen 700 of those students, and we have scheduled out and also seen right at 1,100 students.
Okay, so it's good numbers.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. We also have the partnership with university advising that if a student is still going to advising and has not come to us, then advisors are tracking that information as well. The data that I'm pulling to the 1,100 number would just be for academic coaching in the Center for Academic Success. So we're making very good progress on it. We know that some students may not come in. They received 1 course alert. They had their first test was a little rough, and we understand that, but we try to look at that as a whole. And I'm really focused on the 2 and up number. We had 438 students receive 2 or more. We had 1,200 students receive just. So that's a big cake that we are looking at with the expanded process.
Thank you.
I have a question for faculty. How many of you know what EAB is and how to access it? Because that's where all of the information is placed. So
yes,
just make sure, can you help with that? So
yes,
folks know how to do
absolutely.
that?
So every faculty and every staff member have full access to EAB. Sometimes it may not look right. So in the middle of semesters, access kind of cuts off for a really weird reason. But every person on campus has access to it. You can see your student roster, click on a student. So you can click on Shelby Scott, see that profile, see their current GPA, classes they've taken in the past, you can get down to the messages that they've received from us and advising. You can see that we've contacted them 17 times. You can see any time that they have no-showed us, if they haven't come, or if they have been late or canceled. Any of that information is readily available in EAB. It is an underutilized tool outside of course alerts, but it's very helpful in knowing what advisors might be saying to these students, if they actually attended that tutoring appointment that they said that they were going to, and kind of what they're doing as well. Writing Center also has information in there. Department of Multicultural Achievement, Honors College, and other campus partners, Fraternity and Sorority Life, and CSII are starting to put information. So it's very helpful. We have a website. I'm working on updating the website now. But a big portion of the website is about course alerts, but anyone at any time can log into EAB doing one login.
I have a good question.
Yes.
Is there any impetus to do anything with the data that we get on these students who are marked at risk, to try and learn more about what sort of student is being marked at risk, maybe correlated with some other things that we might have to know about?
Absolutely. So a big portion of the assessment that I do at the end. So this semester we ran 2 phases. So now we're done with phase 1. We're moving into phase 2 of it. So the second session courses. We're looking at it. We do send qualitative surveys to students. The response rate is low. If we've gotten them in for an appointment, they probably don't want to, talk a lot anymore. So our data is a little bit lower on the survey side. But then we send it out as well to, we'll send out a faculty feedback form and get that information. A large majority of it, we can look at any students that withdrew if they had an alert, if they missed one assignment and never came to an appointment, how they do, but we pull all of that information, we pull the GPAs, get the qualitative data to try to see the story of it as well. Yes.
Tell me, so I teach a class that's satisfactory and unsatisfactory, and it doesn't affect GPA or progression. So I've had trouble getting students to take that course seriously, but after the course alerts went out, they were contacted. So I could tell it made a big difference. It's the fact that somebody outside of nursing was contacting them.
Yes. Yes, and students get contacted a lot. So we do ongoing emails as well as text. Everyone's on their phone. So we prompt out a message within the 6 weeks, depending on if they received it on the first day of course alerts opening. They can receive up to 8 emails as well as up to 5 text messages, depending on when their appointment is made. So if they never make an appointment, they've gotten all of those. If they have made an appointment, it would stop as soon as it's made and attended. So I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
So aside from taking advantage of it and filling out and everything, and all the normal stuff we do you have any requests from us, like for faculty, for colleagues that could help you out better?
Yes. So one of the things that I'm working on is kind of a faculty how-to. I'm a document kind of person, so I love a good document that tells me exactly what someone wants me to do. One of the things that we are seeing is in regards to faculty comments. There's a lot of time when a student may be marked as failing the course and they are frequently absent in this and their grade is an F and there are no comments. So we don't know if any instructor can provide information. That is one of the biggest things that in working with our partnership feedback right now that we are getting from advisors and from the Center for Academic Success. Any comments can be helpful. We can't see what's in course and we don't have that connection. That's a USG legal thing that we are working through. But once that information is connected, then we would be able to know, okay, they've missed 2 discussion posts, they've missed 2 quizzes. But we only have the information that is provided to us in that form. We can't see anything else. So the only thing that I would say is more comments. And other than that, I think that we've gotten to a great spot where we're at the 93%, we're at the 35,000 reports. So keeping that up as well as encouraging part-time faculty to fill it out. One of the things that we saw were a lot of part-time faculty weren't submitting the form and didn't have a lot of knowledge about it. So that would be another thing we would say. But we're going to do some extra ongoing outreach to part-time faculty, I believe, next time to see about connecting those resources to them that they may not have gotten in a department meeting or a school meeting in some kind of Questions, comments, concerns? Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the floor over to Jeff. So you all got an email from me with the proposal that has since been updated. So hopefully you just saw that. All received that yesterday. Hopefully you had the opportunity to receive some feedback from your colleagues about this, but I'm gonna go ahead and hand the floor over to Jeff to talk about this proposal, contextualize it a little bit, and then I want all of us to get some feedback.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. A couple months I was out visiting my daughter at college and got to meet her boyfriend for the first time. And we were in the restaurant looking out the window and they pulled up and he got out of the car and he went like this. He was so nervous. And I'm feeling that way a little bit, trying to introduce something so massive as a course schedule, a change. So bear with me, and you're not quite as intimidating as I must have been. I didn't mean to be to this young man, but I do want to ask you to work with me on this and help me as I and others who have been working on this since summer of 2023 are trying to develop a schedule that really works towards student success and our relationship with students being improved. About that history, just briefly, we did start in summer 2023 with a group that the provost brought together. It had a couple deans on it, some people from enrollment management, myself as the faculty senate chair at the time. And I think the impetus was primarily that I think you had discovered 80 different start times in that spring or coming fall. So we had a lot of different start times that were creating a lot of potential conflict. So the provost asked us to get together and meet. Phase one was that group came up with a proposal. Phase two was to bring it to the Senate. The Senate then wanted to address it through a student survey. And the student survey was designed to see if, in fact, this proposal is going to be useful for students. So we looked at everything from students' experience with conflicts, their ideal start times, end times for classes, things like that, preferences for days, all these kinds of things. And then phase three kind of happened with me after being faculty senate chair and becoming a faculty executive assistant. I think about every holiday I get a puzzle that I work on and put together in my home. And this is kind of like a fun puzzle in some ways, trying to think about how to make all these classes work. So I started to conduct kind of a third phase of research, looking not only at our own schedule for the last 2 years, fall and spring, but also looking at our peer institutions in the university system, specifically the comprehensives, but also like Georgia Tech, Georgia, some of those are R1 universities, to try to get my mind around this and really think about how we can organize a schedule that reduces conflict, works for all of our different programs with some exceptions that will just never work no matter what, because nursing, for example, just has a very different kind of setup with these long clinicals that take a lot of time. And College of Ed has graduate program classes that require certain things. So I recognize it can't fit everybody, but at least for our undergraduates and most of the graduate students, this is the proposal that we and then I have been working on. And I've talked with the provost about it, the vice provost and others, but I really want us to be able to talk about it together as a Senate. So with that in mind, I hope you had a chance to review it. I don't want to read all of it. And I know there are probably questions already on your mind that I want to have time for. This will probably be the beginning of some conversations that I hope to have with you as faculty. But let me start with, I don't want to read all of this, but let me just go to the schedule itself. And what I've done, the provost also from, I think, that first charge to the work group, wanted us to look at the possibility of an open hour. What I found was, and I'll go to Tuesday, Thursday for this, there were no other universities in our system that have an open hour except for Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech has theirs on Tuesday, Thursday. And Georgia Tech has beautiful grids that set up everything for every kind of class, every kind of credit, lab courses, studio courses, all of it. They've done a lot of work on this. So I looked at their model to see if it would be possible to build in any free hour or couple of hours in a week that we could use. And I'll let the provost speak to the purpose for an open hour. I have my own experience of that and thoughts about that, but it is possible, I think, to build in an open hour that wouldn't cost us too much. So we could talk about the open hour. The other thing I want to mention is that our bread and butter courses, by and large, are the Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, 75-minute typically courses. We offer like 500 plus of those. We offer like 45 or 50 4-credit courses in the Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday schedule. We offer several 2-credit and 1-credit even. Well, 1-credit, not so much. So we use a lot of the Monday, Wednesday, and the Tuesday, Thursday. So I decided the schedule should really be built around that as its foundation, just because we all teach mostly those kind of courses. So that's one thing to keep in mind that's kind of anchored by that Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, typically 75-minute course schedule. And we don't lose too many of those options when we have a free hour on Tuesday, Thursday. So that is definitely possible. I also looked at the early morning classes before 9 are very low in terms of offering. We don't offer a lot of those. In fact, in this fall right now, we offered a total of 10 courses that began at the 8 to 9:15 time, which is for those 2-day-a-week, 75-minute classes. So we don't offer a lot of those. Noonan will offer some morning courses because of their cohorts of dual enrollment students typically, and trying to get them their classes done before lunchtime. But generally speaking, our classes are offered in this block between 9 and 5. So I tried to emphasize that block and maximize our times within it and make sure that there were little, if any, conflicts across courses. Speaking of conflicts, I'll just mention for those of you who teach 4-credit classes, if you look at the options for 4-credit classes, there's always a 10-minute overlap between the end of a class and the start of a new class. So they end at like 2:10 when a new one starts at 2 o'clock. That's just not reasonable. And I've had to do time conflict overrides almost every semester I've taught because my program offers a lot of 4-credit classes. So I try to reduce that, remove that. I've tried to work with the lab sciences and art and other studios, those who offer studio classes, to see if we can plug in some larger spaces. You see that block D, for example, can go up to 2 hours and 50 minutes, which across the university system is the time needed for like a lab or a studio. So I think it will work, but I definitely don't want to assume that without checking in. So please, let's talk about it and have questions. Is that okay, Dylan, at this point?
Yeah, I think stay together as a group as a whole.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and do that. So questions, comments, anything you heard collected from your colleagues?
Okay.
So we're 2 hours 45 minutes in length. In talking with the other folks, and none of my folks gave any kind of questions or negative feedback. But I was just curious to say, if I wanted to do one of my 3-credit 2 hour 45-minute classes that's Monday, Wednesday, I would be free to start at 9 o'clock and then overlap with that 3 blocks for 2 hours 45 minutes to meet my accreditation requirement.
Yeah, when you offer a 2 hour and 45-minute class, I think it's twice. Is it twice a week for art studio classes?
Yeah.
There will be obviously, a student can't take courses until noon. I mean, that's just going to take up their whole time. That's true of the schedule now. It's true of the schedule that I'm proposing. If you offer a course that is that much time, then the next time a student can take any class on campus would be then, in this case, noon.
Yeah.
So that's something they'll have to manage with their schedule and be advised by Art how to do effectively. Because most of our undergraduate students need courses from other programs, we have to try to reduce that. I think we have to try to reduce conflict as much as possible, but they should be able to manage that big of a chunk and still take at least 2 or 3 other classes, even that same day. Yeah. Also, I'll just mention this with studio and lab time. There is, as our physicists can tell you, space time are kind of 2 sides of the same coin, right? So some of you have designated lab space that can only be filled, during this time. There isn't another lab. So if you run into a problem about how you manage your space within the new schedule and probably the existing schedule, let's talk about that. Whitney Brand has been involved with all of this for facilities, has looked at capacity, looked at what we can manage, and says it can work. One thing I'll say about it working, we have placed a disproportionate number of offerings in the time periods of like 9 and 11 in that kind of area, as opposed to say like in our current schedule, like 3:30. So like in our current schedule, we have over 100 offerings, 112 offerings, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, from 11 to 12:15. That's those 75-minute ones I talked about. But at 3:30, we only offer 57. And so what we get is the facilities get strained because we're not offering classes in a fairly equal distribution across times. So the best thing we can do with any schedule, including this proposed one, is to start to better spread course offerings out throughout the day. So that on this one, a 3 o'clock, 75-minute class would have about as many sections of courses offered as the 11, or in this case, the 9 or the 12. So other questions, comments, please.
Yeah, I'm probably teaching one of those 8 a.m. classes.
Good for you.
And, I've got about 30 dual enrollment students.
Yes.
Today, and it's about 40 some plus students in intro econ. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you eliminate that, because I'm not sure that dual enrollment students bring your student survey.
Right. Yeah.
It just seems, I think it's attractive time for local students to come and go back to high school.
No question.
Totally eliminate it. It may have an effect on that. I don't know.
Not eliminating, certainly allowing earlier courses, depending on how many credits you're offering prior to the gray. The gray is just the sweet spot times, but there could be morning offerings prior to the 9 o'clock start time. So if you had I'm sorry, 7:30 would be one of those options. On Tuesday, Thursday, though, it would be at 8 o'clock. So it depends on if you're teaching a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday schedule.
Can I address?
Yeah, please.
Dual enrollment is a separate beast altogether. I would ask that we treat, given the bell schedules that we're trying to comply with, I think we should treat that like art studios or like nursing. There are certain set asides where we need to say these courses don't necessarily need to meet within. So the question was asked about Noonan and making sure that students are getting what they need in different locations as well. We've got very specific constraints. I mean, if we did dual enrollment just as is, then only those that can get their own transportation are open to that.
But it's not a pure dual enrollment class. I mean, it's students.
But that might be the dominant, people that want, there's nothing that would preclude us from saying, here's a particular audience, whether it's nursing or art or dual enrollment, where we say we want this earlier section, or we want this later section. So I wouldn't treat this as only what we can do, but this is where we start. And if you've got a convincing argument that says we need to start something at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, Thursday for this particular segment of students, the goal is to make sure that if we did that in a English 1101, it doesn't crush their ability to sign up for the other 4 classes that they need. But given the Go West Early in particular and dual enrollment, we can absolutely make changes to this. Again, we're in control of it. This is just a template to begin with.
And currently Noonan this semester has 7 total courses that run from 7:30 to 8:45 for those students. That could still be done within this schedule. Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Pre-calculus and package courses, those are 4 credit-hour courses. And so our faculty members worried that 1 hour 40 minutes, 40 credit hour, 9 to 10:40 might be just too long questions. So it's in such a case, can you take the 3 credit hour plus Friday? It's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, then.
Yeah.
Fridays, not weekdays, right?
Well, Friday is. If you look at it's not set up for 4 credit hour classes. I don't have it broken down by credits, but the offerings allow for you to teach Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, any of the 50-minute slots. And there's a bunch of them. Or you could do the 75-minute slots if you'd prefer, and add a 50-minute slot on a Friday or another day, right? So yeah, it does. I'm sorry, let's see. Let me go to the right one here. So yeah, if you look, it does include Fridays on block C there, that you could offer any of those courses within that time period. So you could also add to a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Monday, Wednesday schedule, a Friday lab or a Thursday, whatever day would work, 50-minute course.
Hours. Maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just 15 in 4 days or
You could,
1 hour 15 too.
that's right. You could do either of those. They would work, absolutely. Just notice on Fridays, we do not have courses, even Monday, Wednesday, Friday courses that end after 2:50 because students are not going to be here or want to take those courses. They're habitually under-enrolled when we offer them. So you'll notice that we have removed Fridays after 2:50, basically. Yeah.
Just to ask, should we, if we teach a weird Frankenstein class in the summertime, where it's 10 to 2:45, 3 days a week in the middle of the week, is that a time, like, this isn't the time to talk about summertime classes, or should I be avoid for one of the weird classes? And
Yeah,
I
this-
think field methods courses have a tendency to be strange for schedule.
Yeah. One, if that were to be done in the fall or the spring, or maybe the summer, it could be, asked for an exception to the schedule.
Yeah.
So that may just be needed, just like we have these long days of nursing clinicals, they have to sometimes, have that exception too.
If I was to engineer like an ask like that, it would be best to still try to hit one that starts.
It would. That would be preferable, yes, because your students may need other courses, yeah. Summer has a pretty heavy online component, I know, so it may not be as big an issue. This is designed for face-to-face. It allows for hybrid, but I would recommend that, this is for course schedulers more than you, but if your program is going to offer a Tuesday in class, Thursday online, then you need to have another one that's a Thursday in class, Tuesday online at that time to just kind of help balance it out. But yeah, if you have a significant need for a class that doesn't fit well, that's something to talk with the provost office about. That sound right? Provost? Yeah. Yeah, Lynn, please.
I'm assuming that we are trying to build these schedules around student preference, right? And one of the advantages that this schedule has, is that you're able to fit in one additional class segment into sort of the gray sweet spot, right? But one of those classes ends at 5:45, and I know you guys noted the mode end time that students preferred was 5 p.m. If you look at the distribution of the data, over 70% of students prefer for classes to end at 5 p.m. or earlier. So I would be concerned that additional slot wouldn't fill very well as well.
Yeah, it's a problem in the current schedule too. We have a 5:30 to 6:45 course that we offer. We don't offer a 5 to 6:15. I'm not quite sure why. But those courses that happen basically after 5 are less likely to be enrolled in than those that start before 5. But we have to kind of also enculturate our students around this. The notion of a 9 to 5 day is not what a lot of people are experiencing anymore, including a lot of our students. So I think, we're going to have some overlap into the after 5 time period. We do already. We're going to, I think, anyways, with the new proposed schedule. So I'm aware of it. I'm mindful of it, but I think 9 to 5, basically, we're still pretty close on it, is probably our best option. It's either 4:30 to 5:45 or what it is now, which is 5:30 to 6:45, which I think is even a little worse.
My understanding was those later classes were preferable for graduate students who were working during the day. And so that 4:30 class, they probably wouldn't be able to make, but the 6 p.m.
Yeah, we didn't examine any graduate students, but I think the sentiment is right that our grad students tend to work during the day. A lot of our undergrads do too now. So we haven't minimized the number of evening offerings, but we have tweaked the hours on that for sure. Yeah. Yeah, please.
Sociology, where we have a lot of labs, and many of them are 110 minutes, and even there's a 180-minute lab. So would we be, is the expectation to just truncate those 200 minutes to fit into the schedule, or is that something that our program coordinator would work with provost or someone else who's schedulers to say, hey, these are exceptions?
Is that, my question back is that kind of truncation allowable within the standards of your accrediting bodies? Because I want to make sure we're not costing the students on that. Yeah.
It's not, yes.
Yeah, I would start with Carnegie contact hours and see what is the accreditation. And then it could be that those have no idea, I'm picking on them.
Yeah.
But sometimes courses grow over time organically, right? So this could be an opportunity to revisit. But it could also be, you know, let's try to align with the start times. If it goes over, then it minimizes the conflict. If there's a pedagogical reason to do it, then instead of, you know, starting at 9:30, you know, there's a way of incorporating that in that tries to minimize the, you know, taking 3 spots instead of just 2 spots on the standard schedule.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
And also, just so you know, I did look across all of our institutions in the system, and they all work within the standard lab times that are typical. So, you know, within a 50-minute lab, if it's just a short lab, but most are longer than that, up to 2 hours and 50 minutes, none longer than 2 hours and 50 minutes. So you may have to work within that space of like block, whatever that block is here. I think it's F on this one, or E, I'm sorry. Or no, F, yeah. So you may have to think where you can fit in and work, but definitely check what's required and what you actually need to do versus what has become sort of tradition. Yeah.
Will there be any restrictions? So for instance, we've got this framework like Black F for credit, course, whatever. Could that just be used for a 1 credit lab? Because we only have like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday offerings among many lecture. So a lot of lecture students can have variability on their labs. Would that pose issues if you have just a 1 and done on Wednesdays, just fill in that slot, or are you advising like labs at 1 course are all on complementary days?
I'm not advising that. I think as long as it fits within the schedule, so students can meet other demands from other programs for their courses, and it works within your program, I don't see an issue there. Yeah, I think that should, you know, we can talk more about that. I think it should work within the schedule that way. Yeah.
The sciences, those questions about time, space management.
Yes.
The fact that we have 4 credit courses, with different timeframes for labs. We have
That's right.
3 credit courses with required labs. A whole lot of stuff, workshops, and we have to work around those kinds of things. It may not quite fit this, and I know we just have to have a little bit of discussion.
We do. Yeah.
Throw that out there.
No, absolutely. I mean, I know contact hours are different for like labs and studio time. You need more time. And your space limitations are very real, but also. Yeah, art has similar issues, but I would also encourage all of the sciences and arts to really look at what is required by accreditation for total number of hours on like lab work and things, and what has just been our tradition and habit, because other institutions make it work within a similar kind of schedule. So I think sometimes, like I know chemistry was, you know, offering 3 full 3-hour labs, but everyone else does 2 hours and 50 minutes. And that's just the way you interpret the writing of the policy. You know, an hour for academics is a 50-minute hour typically. So those kind of things I want you to just definitely check on first before we have discussions about whether accommodations have to be made. Yeah, does that sound okay, Carlos? Sounds consistent. Yeah. Oh, is there a hand raised over here? Sorry, I want to get to people I was not paying attention to appropriately, like my children. Go ahead. Patrick.
I got a part, great. In school of communication, film and media, film and video production is a program that has a lot of 3 credit hour courses that need 2.5 hours. Generally, and many of them meet in the evening, 5:30 to 8. For example, generally we offer 9 to 10 classes a semester. 6 to 7 of them are those 2.5 hour classes.
Yeah.
So there's a significant concern about having all of those offered on Friday. Because you know, for students who are in their major, that would be very intense. Yeah. So we assume that there'd be flexibility.
For evenings, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we didn't know if that flexibility might involve mashing together a couple of the, you know, combining a couple of the sessions that are already on the schedule, or, you know,
If you need
during the
2.5
week as opposed to having them all.
Sure. If you need 2.5 hour classes,
That's okay, got
they can fit within that 3 to 5:30. So that row of block E on this, and also into the evening 6 to 8:30. They don't have to be taught on Fridays. The only thing about, I think an earlier version of this had Friday designated. I've been working on this a lot, so don't worry about that. The way it's set up now is there is encouragement if you are not going to fit a class within this schedule. So like a 1 day a week 4 credit hour class is 200 hours. That does not fit within this schedule. The encouragement would be to try to do that in the evening or to do that on a Friday, because it will not conflict as much then with student schedules for other classes. So evenings, Fridays, or within these blocks that are here, 2.5 hours would fit.
And another question that came up, would that be something that would have to be done every semester, or would that be something that could be planned out?
You mean like exceptions?
Yes, would it be every semester?
Yeah, I'll let the provost speak to that, but my guess would be when it is a regular practice like nursing, where every semester they have clinicals, and we know that, that would just be, I think, approved at the onset. But if it's going to be an exception that happens occasionally, I think you'd have to probably do it more regularly.
I'd say let's codify it, let's fit it in, what works best for your program, and then it's ongoing until you tell us otherwise. So again, the goal of all of this was to minimize when a student signs up for a comm course and then they can't get into an English class or vice versa. And so if we standardize across the institution rather than local choices within departments, then it's going to minimize that friction. But if you say within this structure, we really need this going on, great, fantastic.
And in a graduate program or nursing, those students are typically not taking any other kinds of courses. So it works really well to have it kind of in-house. But if your program is, going to be different from the schedule, just bear in mind, if it's undergrads, they're going to need courses in other programs, other, units, and you might create a conflict for them. And we'd like to minimize that as much as possible. Please, yeah. Laura.
I think the 3 hour it is nursing. So when you talk about nursing having exceptions to the clinical, does that apply to all of our courses?
Are you talking about block E right now?
D.
Oh, D. So 3 credit hours that meet 1 day a week. Would it still fit within this schedule as it is?
Does it even apply to my course because it's nursing? You mentioned clinical being an exception, or all our courses exceptions?
My discussion with Dean Dua was that it would be pretty much nursing as a whole accepted. Would be the expectation. I don't know if because you don't have students taking other courses, you really don't have those conflicts. So my understanding is you'll be able to pretty much run nursing the way you need to. Yeah, sure. You want scroll down to Tuesday, Thursday? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
8 to 10:30, which I understand allows for 50 minutes for 3 hours, but currently the way it's set up, at every 50 minutes we can take a 10-minute break and not lose class time. You won't be able to do it from 8 to 10:30.
You can go all the way up to 10:50. This allows you to go up to 10:50 if you need to. Now, it's still, whether you count that as a certain number of credits is a question you have to address, but this allows up from 8:30 to 8:45 to 8:50, which to 10:50, which some of our programs need. Yeah. Yeah, please.
All the education being members, we have field experiences. Is it Thursday, classes on Thursday? Are we considered in that same exception?
Is that for your undergraduates or graduates? Undergraduates, and those take the whole day, typically. Three credit hours, 1 day a week. Okay. So would that not fit within these blocks that are here in block D? Okay. Okay, so that would be a case where if it won't fit within and it can't be moved to evenings or Fridays, then I think you'd want to have a discussion with academic affairs about an exception for that kind of a course. Yeah.
I'm sure you already did this, but have we talked to folks in auxiliary services about the potential impact this has on dining center traffic? I'm sure you have, but I'm just thinking, if you ever go to try to eat at East Commons at 12:15, you made a mistake. You want to be there 12:07 or 12:37 because the students are there, right? So I just imagine that 100% of the students might eat at the same time, and are they concerned about that? If they're not, I'm okay. I just am thinking through this logistically.
I think Dr. Akins wants to respond and Provost.
Great question, and, currently, as we speak, parallel with the discussions, auxiliaries and diagrams are public studies. We started this a month ago with the current, population. We even took pictures during the day, how many students. And, some of you, by the way, on these pictures, which is wonderful. We will have study not only for US, for both East and West Commons, but also for parking, for other services, to ensure that this schedule would work. It was about a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Weber, I believe, when I asked for the schedule to be shared with the auxiliaries and the US. So if there is any question, it will be brought back here. But please know that we are diligently working on every detail.
Thanks for your question. Yeah.
Similar, are we expected to just, or are we sharing this with athletics? And then, athletic teams are expected to adjust their practice schedules accordingly?
Good question.
Want to start with the faculty and get input first, and then we'll share working with auxiliary, working with athletics. We wanted to iron out and make sure that the faculty agree and say this is viable. And then we'll share with others before any kind of adoption and building out the fall 25 schedule.
Okay, that was my next question, is when would this go into effect if we did?
If we adopt this, it would be fall 25.
Yeah, Mike.
I had a question, so this relates to peer-led team learning workshops. Typically in chemistry and many other programs I know, we have one of these Monday, Wednesday classes, 75 minutes lectures. But then in addition to that is a 90-minute workshop that the students must attend. I could see that these would fit within like something like the block A or block F, where you've got those 100-minute periods. My one concern is then those are kind of spaced out quite a bit, where it wouldn't allow us to maybe utilize the rooms that we have set aside for those workshops. Would this maybe be a case where if we could find these start times where we could start those workshops consistent with another part of the schedule? And just maybe like run over a little bit, that might still be okay? Or might we just have to kind of work with that on a case by case basis?
Well, I think, again, this speaks to the space and time issue. So, I mean, one thing I'd want to do is get with Whitney and maybe get with your program and see if there could be space accommodations managed for you to have more options within the schedule. But if space cannot be managed for that, then I think we would have to look at possible exceptions. I would say, though, we're trying to keep that free hour there free and open. But other than that, I think we could probably figure out ways to make that work if needed. But again, check and make sure that is required, check and make sure how many of those things are required for your accreditation and your program goals, and we'll try to obviously work to help you be successful after that.
Yeah, just one more thing, Jeff, on this, and I can follow up with what Mark was saying. Again, it goes through those workshops and programs that have to coordinate their schedules. And right now, just specifically, I think because I brought up biology and chemistry, where sometimes coordination between courses has to take place within that semester. And again, we've got unusual times associated with these workshops. They kind of bring that schedule. So again, just another additional nuances like that, which you have to have some more conversations.
Yeah, I think we do, and I hope to, and let's see what we can arrive at. If we do the nuance, approach for your program or for your program, we don't want to have that tail wag the dog with the whole schedule. And if you look at the schedule times now, I know we don't have much time, Dylan, but on the document, I hope you'll take a little time just to scroll down and look at what I did was I took from the scoop essentially the standard start times. And if you just look at these 50-minute ones, I don't know why they're all over the map, but they are all over the map. 7:45 to 8:50, 9:55. I mean, 12:05. Why are we doing that? I'm sure there's some reason in our history for why it made sense, but at this point, these things are just, they should be rare exceptions rather than the standard start times. So, and by the way, the 50-minute class, we only have 17 of those we're offering this semester. So they're not our bread and butter courses. We really should build not from a 50-minute schedule, but from a 75-minute twice a week schedule. But yeah, I want to keep working with you guys on those nuances for sure. Sorry, Dylan.
Yeah, no, so I'm
I know I have questions, so what I'm gonna do, and I think what I encourage you all to do is get with Jeff directly. I know he will deal with them. And if there's a revision, if there's something we need to deal with, I think the meeting, we can do that as well.
Whenever I'm working my puzzle, at some point I gotta get my kids to come put a new set of eyes on it, because I can't see, right? So please help.
Yeah, that 1205 reminds me of TDS and watching the Braves back in the day, right? I'll go back a ways. One thing I do want to add, about 3 years ago, faculty were coming and expressing that they really didn't have contiguous blocks of time for their scholarship. And so in addition to adopting a more standard schedule, I would also encourage the chairs and the deans, and then of course the faculty to take this up as well, to say, if it's appropriate, can we schedule faculty, if we go with this Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday is the dominant, could we also schedule people such that they're teaching primarily across 2 or 3 days? And it creates more contiguous space for scholarship, so that your teaching schedule doesn't look like Swiss cheese. It's very difficult, and I'm speaking from personal experience. We don't get into flow state until you really have had some time to get into the work. And so in addition to adopting a more humane schedule, with the exceptionalities, of course, but how and where we schedule faculty teaching should also be addressed. So that in consultation with faculty, you do have more of that deep contiguous time that you can do your scholarship. I want to put that out there as well. This isn't just about shuffling when we start courses. It's also how we schedule faculty so that they can have more time for their scholarship and be more productive in that. Happy to dive into that more individually with you all if you've got ideas. So please reach out, but that's also an intent and the message that I'm giving the deans as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. That's a wrap for today.
May I say one thing before we go, just as a psychotherapist, I'm sorry, with this is quite serious. With the recent losses of colleagues, I just want to make sure that we take care of each other. We watch out for each other. I don't know the details of all of these colleagues passing and so on. Some I do know, but I do know that we are under a lot of stress and we manage a lot of emotional and problem-focused coping. And even then, sometimes our resources are too thin to manage. And it might be the person next to you who's having that kind of experience. So please, let's take care of each other, okay? Thanks.
Thank you.